Thank you, Kelly. I am Deb Hodge. I'm Director of Programs at the Capital CoLAB, which is one of the initiatives within the Greater Washington Partnership. I'm joined by my colleagues here on the academic side, Sarah, Shawn, and Jack from both University of Maryland, Baltimore County and Montgomery County Public Schools. So I will give a little background on the Greater Washington Partnership and our initiatives, and then Sarah, Shawn, and Jack will talk a little bit about how this looks in practice. So out of every good success story, you have to start with a failure story, right? So the Greater Washington Partnership origin story was actually a group of CEOs got together to put in an Olympic bid for the 2024 Olympics in this region, in the Washington, D.C. region. And although the bid was not successful, they realized that the power of their voices and that they could really have a significant impact on this region if they put all of their voices together. So the Greater Washington Partnership was formed, and we aim to make the capital region, the national capital region, and as we define that, from Baltimore, Maryland to Richmond, Virginia, the best place to work, live, and build a business. So as you can assume, with that mission, there are several different initiatives that we have at the Greater Washington Partnership. We have affordable housing, transportation. We have a new inclusive growth strategy, which is really exciting. And our skills and talent initiative is called the Capital CoLAB. So the Capital CoLAB, really what we look to do is to make this region the most diverse digital tech ecosystem. And we do that by partnering with our employer partners and educators in the region to make sure that we have industry aligned digital tech pathways. We also have a very, very significant focus on inclusive growth. So making sure that at least 50% of the students that we have going through these pathways are from underrepresented populations. So this is a slide, an example of our employer partners. We are adding new partners all the time. You'll see it's a variety of industries, but I think the one thing that stands out is we have a lot of defense contractors, which is really unique to this region and a regional partnership like this. We also have the CIA, which you probably can't tell from the logo on the screen that it is the CIA. So we are looking to also add more federal agencies to our employer partners. We also work with 5 K through 12 jurisdictions in the area, and again, from kind of Baltimore to Richmond. And our university partners are displayed on the screen. We do have a couple of partners that are outside our region, namely Virginia Tech and UVA. However, they are very big talent suppliers to this region and for our employers. So they are included in our ecosystem as well. So to get into a little bit of how we came to our mission and vision within the Capital CoLAB, we had a tech talent study that was conducted with McKinsey about a year ago at this point. We kicked it off before COVID and we're able to pivot to include some data and kind of thinking around what a post-COVID world would look like. So these key findings do include COVID, thinking about employment after COVID as well. So we found that in this region specifically, we have about a 50% gap in tech talent. So the supply in this region from our area universities and educators, we still have about a 50% gap in what we will need within the next 5 years, and a 67% gap in tech adjacent talent. And we define tech adjacent talent as any occupation or role that touches technology at all. So it could be a finance, HR professional, and in all honesty, it's really almost any position these days. You need to have some sort of technology savviness in order to perform a role. So we found that the tech talent demand is concentrated into a few occupations. We've been hearing about automation for a long time now, so it's really kind of increasing the need for this automation for folks to be more digitally literate, and that although then interestingly is doing far better than our peers in with the underrepresented workforce, we still, based on this region's demographics, are not doing as well as we'd like to. So this is just a graph that shows the actual numbers with our tech and tech adjacent gap. So what we do at the Capital CoLAB, we bring together all of our employer partners and develop lists of knowledge, skills, and abilities in both tech adjacent and what we call a generalist and tech specific fields. So we have cybersecurity, machine learning, and data analytics. We pull all of the knowledge, skills, and abilities needed to be successful in entry-level roles at our employer partners. We then bring those KSAs to our education partners. They embed them within their curriculum. And then that is a signal to employers once these students complete either their K-12 pathways, their community college, or their university pathways, that they have the skills that our regional employers are looking for in their workforce. This is just another graphic that kind of shows how the ecosystem, how everything fits together, employers, educators, and students. And kind of the next step in thinking about this is the digital tech credential program, so the generalist and the specialist credentials. But the next step in thinking about this is really how our learners are communicating these skills and how employers are consuming the artifacts or the articulation of the skills that students are receiving as part of their pathways. So this graphic really shows how we are thinking about building this blockchain of skills. So determine what the skills and pathways are. We have that. We have the knowledge, skills, and abilities. Making sure that the outcomes are embedded within curriculum. We have that in process now. But really thinking about how we can publish these credentials to a blockchain and ultimately have those signal to employers. And it's also giving the learners kind of ownership over their own learning and how they can communicate what they've learned to employers. So the next slide I'm going to show you is a very, very busy graphic, but I think it does a really good job in kind of signifying what we are trying to do. I should note that this is just a prototype of something that we have all worked together on. It's not something that has moved forward yet, but we're very excited about the possibilities because, as you can see, on the left-hand side, the cyber pathway is an example. Those digital badges that students earn along their pathway go into this CLR, and for this particular prototype, we're using APHIS through UMBC. And it really allows the learner to share both with industry and with other educational partners the learning that they've already completed. One of the other nice things about this is you'll see on the right-hand side, once a person comes into industry, the learning doesn't stop. Lifelong learning, what are the additional professional certifications that they're earning? What are kind of the upskilling or reskilling opportunities that they have in addition to work-based learning that they can put in one place to kind of communicate what they've learned. So that is a brief overview of kind of our initiatives, what we do at the Greater Washington Partnerships Capital CoLAB. I am going to hand it now over to my colleague, Shawn, who's going to talk a little bit about how some of these ideas are put into practice.
Thank you, Deb. Good morning, everyone. I'm Shawn Krasa. I'm the supervisor for work-based learning in Montgomery County Public Schools. And as with any initiative in trying to move the work forward, we have to take a moment and think about what is our current state, and then what do we need to do in order to advance and help our students be better prepared for the industry and the workplace. And so just in taking a look at our Greater Washington Partnership, there were three key components that we started to focus our attention on. The very first one was helping increase the awareness and the experience for students at the elementary and middle school level. Some of the feedback that we've gotten over the years is that when students wait till their high school time frame to begin exploring a career pathway, it is sometimes too late, or they might not have had the information that they needed to make a better informed decision. And so in Montgomery County Public Schools, we've started initiatives in the elementary level. For example, a partnership with Apple, where elementary school students are engaging with iPads. And then in the middle school level, we're doing a Montgomery Can Code initiative through Apple. A recent partnership is with a council member for a day, where students do a public service announcement they develop through the iPad. And so what we're trying to do is help students better understand what career pathways are available. And one of the big steps that we took 2 years ago, prior to this position I'm in now, I was the principal at Thomas Edison High School of Technology. And students had an opportunity to complete all their academic studies at the high school, their home high school, and then they could come to Edison to earn an industry credential. And so we had students coming from all 25 high schools accessing our basic programs of study. And so when we partnered with Junior Achievement, this was an opportunity for every grade 7 student to not only experience junior achievement and build their financial literacy and their understanding, but they had an opportunity to tour all the career pathways and programs at Edison. And so when you think about the number there, that's about 11,000 students every year that are starting to be introduced to different career pathways. Our partnership with the Greater Washington area is really focused on information technology. And so what we've been doing is channeling the experiences so that we can increase awareness and understanding at the middle school level. That way, when students get to the high school, they're better informed about what career pathways are available. And I think that's the other key piece. When I think about the second topic, it's how do you introduce it, but then what does it look like for a student if they do want to advance through college and earn that degree before they go and work in the industry? So we have partnered with Montgomery College and University of Maryland to look at the curriculum in our IT career pathways so that you can see how it builds foundational skills in high school and then advances at the community college level and then advances even further at the university level. And so helping students see what that pathway is and kind of simplifying that process, it was really valuable for us to work with our post-secondary partners and kind of do a crosswalk of the curriculum, if you will. And then the other component, moving our work forward, is that work-based learning component. I think as educators, we do a great job looking at the curriculum, teaching the curriculum, preparing those concepts. In order for us to take it to the next level, it's really critical to integrate that work-based learning experience from our employers. So when we begin to introduce students to the idea of earning an industry credential or experiencing apprenticeship or doing an internship, what we're ideally doing is giving them an opportunity to apply what they've done in the classroom to a real world work experience, where someone from the industry is working with them, coaching them, mentoring them, giving them feedback, and developing their skill. And so when they earn that industry credential, they can be working in that career field while they're continuing to advance their college studies and their academic degrees. So with that being said, I'm going to transition to Sarah.
Thank you, Shawn. I'm Sarah Gardenghi. I'm the Chief of Staff at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County in the Division of Professional Studies. And within my division, we oversee the degree programs that are located at the Shady Grove campus, which is in Montgomery County. And so today I'm really happy to talk to you about pathway programs My position is focused on K-12 partnerships. And part of what I'm doing is working with folks like Shawn and people from Montgomery County, from the community college, as well as other industry leaders to create a pathway program that is meeting industry demand. And so, like Shawn said, part of the impetus with any pathway program is to raise awareness. And doing this in the K-12 environment is really an integral part of leading these students into a career pathway that is going to meet the industry demand. And so the pathway program that we've been developing is called STEM Ready. And it is something that students would start in their 10th grade year. They would apply and take classes then in the next couple of years that they were probably on a trajectory to take, but they might not have been aware of the classes that they would need to have in order to go to the community college, as well as to get their 4-year degree. And so they're able to do this program in succession, knowing that they will be finishing with that undergraduate degree program at the universities of Shady Grove and have the AA from Montgomery College, as well as from the UMBC with their bachelor's program. A couple of the programs that are important for you to understand that are popular as well as have been developed down at the Shady Grove campus are in relation to the industry. We have translational life sciences technology, and this program is really to meet the biotechnology demand. 75% of the biotech companies in the state of Maryland are located in Montgomery County. So for students to go into STEM Ready and in their high school years know which pathways they should take for their biology and math, this will help set them up to then go to Montgomery College and take a biotechnology AA. From there, they know the next step to go into the undergraduate TLST program. So this is an example of one such pathway. And while STEM Ready is, very much aligning the curriculum with each one of the institutions, we also have the pillars that are to support the students, because a big initiative of this pathway is to help underrepresented students. Students who might not have ever thought that they could go into something called cloud computing. They might not have been aware of what it was. And so, like Shawn said, raising that awareness early, giving these students tools like summer camps or the experience to go do a job shadow will help the students gain the pillars that are so important for STEM Ready. And they are the academic training, like we've been talking about, as well as the career readiness, those skill sets that we hear from employers who want certain, knowledge base, the KSAs from these students. We also have experiential learning, and this is where the students will have the opportunity to go do internships and workshop series, as well as then the industry credential. And that's where we're going to talk a little bit more down the road here about the blockchain as well. But this would give the students the opportunity to get credentials such as a Network Plus or a badge that would be related to what they are going into with their degree programs. And so this type of pathway has been very much a partnership within these different institutions, and a lot of building is going on right now, even down to the application process for how you engage with these students. And so the program will open up this coming fall. And one of the most important things for you to know about it is that it has STEM empowerment. That is the wraparound services. And that's where we are in touch with the students from the very beginning to the end by providing them with the life skills as well as the counseling and the assistance with their academic training that they might need throughout the entire program. So it's all built on a STEM empowerment foundation. So with that, I'll let Jack talk a little bit more about the next steps with the credentials and blockchain.
So sort of starting at this and thinking about how we got to this point, I'm going to sort of step back a little bit and explain. So as the Greater Washington Partnership was starting the credential model, it was really a very interesting time. And so one, this was the first example where we had employers really sit down and do detailed knowledge, skills, and abilities with institutions. And so what was nice about the Greater Washington Partnership process is they began to engage with the academic community and the industry community in a collaboration of talking about what skills were needed. And so as we started looking at both the generalist and then the specialist credentials, the specialist credentials have cybersecurity, data analytics, machine learning, to name a few. What we realized is that these are going to be things that are likely going to evolve over time. And the way a lot of schools were initially approaching the project was, do you go in and you work with your faculty to change your curriculum? And that's an important thing, and we have done that, where we're seeing our curriculum be influenced by the Greater Washington Partnership. But we also saw that there was likely going to be a Silicon Valley partnership, or there might be a New York City partnership, or there might be some other group who comes forward with a set of similar but slightly different KSAs. And what we wanted to be able to be thinking about is, as students are going through their curriculum, they may be able to get multiple kinds of curriculums, KSAs satisfied, because often there'll be a lot of overlap. And we wanted to be thinking about how we could flexibly build this so that students would have as much option as possible. And so one of the things that we started thinking about early on was the importance of really looking at how we might track and manage this, because we didn't want to do it at the course level. We wanted to do it at the learning outcome level. And so as we worked with the Greater Washington Partnership and we identified what skills, knowledge, and ability they wanted students to have, we then began working with our faculty to be developing and reviewing their courses and identifying what learning outcomes were coming from those various courses. And so in order to be able to manage this really led us to sort of two things. One, we needed a tool that could really do the deep level curriculum analysis and tracking. And that was how we got involved with APHIS. And so APHIS has been a great partner in sort of working with us to be able to show how these things can be done and to be able to systemically build these in a very flexible way. And that's absolutely critical if you're going to want to create something that can evolve over time. The second part that we realized is that it was absolutely essential to be thinking about the comprehensive learner record. And for those of you that aren't that familiar with the comprehensive learner record, although I would guess looking at the audience that most of you are aware, the idea of the comprehensive learner record is something where in the last few years, we're seeing more and more consensus. It's something that has been sponsored by ACRO, which is the registrar's organization, and NASPA, which is the student affairs professional organization. And it's built on top of standards that IMS Global, our host for today, has developed by working with the community over the last 2.5 years. And it leverages the Open Badges V2 standard that allows us to be able to make these kinds of things interchangeable among tools. And so as we started this project with the Greater Washington Partnership, we saw this as an opportunity to also sort of pull in some academic innovation that we thought would be helpful long-term for our institution, but also for our students. And so all of this has sort of come into play. Now, I've seen some questions within the, the chat about, well, where's blockchain and how is this all coming together? And so what's been interesting with blockchain is that, in all honesty, blockchain, in my vision for all of this, was a couple of years out. That, right now we're in this process of building out our learning outcomes. We're in the process of establishing the comprehensive learner record. But the Greater Washington Partnership came to us and said, hey, we would like to be working on a project to be thinking about blockchain. And where blockchain, I think, really fits in so nicely with this is that if we want to be thinking about lifelong learning and about evolvement of your skills over time, as well as being able to give individuals personalized control over which comprehensive learner record elements they actually release, blockchain is an essential component to this, or something like a blockchain piece is an essential component. We've got to be able to have something that people can individually be able to control who has access to. And right now, there are a number of solutions where blockchain has lent itself to this kind of application where I, as an individual, can go in and say, these people can have access to this part of my record and these people can't. And we see this as being really critical for the comprehensive learner record over time, because we expect the comprehensive learner record to have a lot of information in it. For example, we're tracking or hoping to track student clubs and organizations. You may not want to release all of the clubs and organizations you participated in as part of your experience as an undergraduate 30 years later. We often do things in college that, maybe we change our political views or our philosophies over time. And so what we share and how we share it, we want to be knowing that we can give a lot more control to the students to be able to manage their micro-credentials. And so this is where the blockchain piece has come in. We haven't settled just yet on exactly how we would do this, but what we expect is that between some of the vendors that are out there, as well as working with our partner APHIS, we'll come up with solutions around how we want to do this to be able to be integrating in as we're moving forward on this. Where I like this project, though, so much, and especially working with Sarah and Shawn, is that we know that if we can begin to influence students in 9th and 10th grade, they will make choices that will help them immeasurably as they're going through the education pipeline. For UMBC, often, while we'll get a number of students from Montgomery County that will come to UMBC as first-time, full-time freshmen, we know that among the transfer population, which is also very large for coming to UMBC, they're not thinking about UMBC academic requirements in high school if they're planning to go to the community college. And yet, taking a 4th year of a language while they're in high school or while they're finishing up their community college experience allows them to satisfy our foreign language requirement, which can be helpful. Taking their math courses or taking some of their general education requirements while they're in high school, especially if they're doing a dual degree program, which is what Montgomery County is starting to also think about, is really helpful. And we feel the comprehensive learner record, if we can show them what they need to be filling in, back in high school, this is a great way of starting that activity. So I'll be quiet. I know I've talked a little bit too much there, and I'm sure there's questions for moving forward.
One of the things I'll just add on to that, Jack, is from the employer perspective with the blockchain, knowing that it's capable of providing more information than just a transcript would. It has that metadata that can directly plug into an applicant tracking system, as that's the ideal state, to allow employers to, we know that they're doing sorting based on machine learning and keywords and all of that now, but having this kind of more standardized metadata and open standards, it will allow an even playing field, right, for students that have the knowledge, skills, and abilities and have met the qualifications, but aren't necessarily communicating it the same way as on a resume or some of the older, more traditional methods of the past.
Great.
So I know we had some questions. Kelly, do you want to kind of?
I was going to
Okay,
say, we
great.
have a few questions that have come in, a couple related to the K-12 side. Who's covering the cost if they're doing those community college courses when they're still in K-12? Who's helping to pay for those pathways?
So in Montgomery County Public Schools, when we look at how do we help prepare students for accessing like dual enrollment classes at Montgomery College, there is funding through the Perkins funding that we're able to help channel to support financial aid for those students in need. So as we think about increasing access and opportunity, especially for our students, our African American, Hispanic students, we want to increase the diversity. We want to increase access. We want to remove those barriers. And we want to have clearly defined pathways. I think for a very long time, everybody got on the college track. I know in Montgomery County, we had the 7 keys to college readiness. And these are the steps that you need to take as a student, as a parent, as an educator, to be prepared for college and get that college degree. And I think to advance that, take it to the next step, what we're in the process of doing is helping our students and parents both understand what it means to earn an industry credential, what it means to take a college level class in high school, what it means to access an apprenticeship at the high school level. So what we're trying to do is help them understand that college isn't a career. It's one part of the puzzle to help them on their career pathway. And so there's not this one size fits all for students. We want to help them explore, introduce them to the opportunities, and allow them to be better informed on their career decisions. So to answer the question, there is Perkins funding, there is federal funding available that we can help those students and families in need to support their academic advancement. And then also from an employer standpoint, when we work closely with our industry partners and they advise us to add pathways. So for example, cybersecurity was one pathway that we currently didn't have. And 2 years ago, that was a new pathway that went through the review process and was integrated in as another way for students to advance. And in addition to adding that pathway, we added the CompTIA Security Plus certification into that pathway. And so that's where it's so critical now when you look at how competitive the job market is. We want to make sure that we're not only working closely with our post-secondary partners, we want to be working closely with our employers too, and then helping our students and parents understand how this world is changing and evolving.
Great. In addition to that, there was a question about ownership of a CLR as a student. What happens after they leave an institution that issues a CLR? Who owns it? So I don't know who would like to kind of tackle that question. Maybe Jack?
Well, I saw we had Tom that was answering, Tom Green of,
Yep.
of ACRO, who's really the expert on all of this. And what we're looking at this as is that this is institutional information. And so it has been verified by the institution. And so it will be available for people to be accessing what was institutionally verified for a very long time. I mean, we have no plans to be deprecating it at any point in the future. I'm not saying it'll be permanent forever, but at this point, we have no plans to ever be deprecating, what we're producing for the CLR that would be there. Now, saying that, how all of this evolves, how all of this is viewed is probably going to have some changes over time. And that's some of what we want to try to be understanding. Where I see this, though, as also being an incredible opportunity for our institution is especially in these technology-related fields. They're undergoing just rapid change. Cybersecurity, data analytics, machine learning are changing every 3 to 4 years in terms of new capabilities, new technologies. And we've talked about lifelong learning as we're starting to also be thinking about both our credit and non-credit kind of offerings in the space. We want to be able to be helping students also understand where something that they may have learned, they've gotten, badges for that, has evolved and maybe has new capabilities, so that we can be encouraging to come back and update their skills around some of the new technologies. That's part of our planning that we're trying to be thinking as we do this. And so we see this as part of a long-term way of trying to keep people updated on their skills.
Great. There was a question about the IMS Global CLR standard, and are people actually implementing it? Where is it at in its maturity? And I would just take a quick stab to say it's been recently finalized. We already have at least 3 suppliers who have not only implemented the standard, but actually performed our conformance certification. So they are certified providers of that CLR in a format that is interoperable. In addition to that, we have many others who are on their way. So I would say it has been recognized not only by IMS, but also by ACRO as kind of the standard to say, if you're doing this work, this is the standard you should be developing to, so that it truly is interoperable and can be shared amongst institutions and employers as needed, as Tom just mentioned. So if you don't know Tom Green, he's with ACRO. So he's another great resource on the call with us today. I had a question about kind of the role of credentials in K-12. We talked a lot about how your programs and your pathways, and then are they getting digital badges? Are those badges then recognized at the next level or by employers? What's kind of the role there in the K-12 perspective, Shawn?
Yes, so when we think about IT, we have like network operations pathway where students can earn the A+ and Network Plus certification through CompTIA. The cybersecurity program, they're able to access and take the Security Plus certification. One of the steps that we've taken in Montgomery County, I think it's really important to have teachers not only with the skill set, but background from the industry that can help students develop the skill set and train them to take these industry credentials. So adding the industry credential into the career readiness pathway helps prepare the student to work toward earning that credential. Those students that are able to earn the credential can begin using that in industry while they're taking their classes. I can speak specifically to my principalship at Thomas Edison High School of Technology. We had students that would earn the industry credential in each one of our career pathways. And then what they would do is go work for an employer in that particular industry, and they would be taking their classes while they were doing that. And if you think about it, if you're using that industry credential and you're gaining real world experience, there are opportunities and learnings that take place with the employer that you can't learn from a book. And so I think that's a big shift for us. I think for a very long time, students have gone through classes academically, they've gotten their college degree, but when you add in that opportunity to take the industry credential and then you start working as a junior, as a senior in high school for an employer, and then you start taking your college classes in 2 or 4 years' time, when you go to interview for that position that you've been pursuing, you can say to that employer, I have my college degree, and by the way, I have this industry credential and I have 2 to 4 years of experience to go with it. So from an employer standpoint, it's kind of win-win. The employer has a employee that's better prepared, better equipped, has that real world experience. And so that's how we see our students kind of evolving and advancing over time. And I can speak to that from some of the stories that I've heard and seen from our students at Edison.
I'd also add to that at UMBC, the employers who come to campus to interview students for internships are really committed to the training of those students and to giving them the real world experience. And once they've invested the time in those students, they are looking for candidates who they will then hire permanently. And so seeing what their progressive credentials are through time, even down to that coding camp that they took from Montgomery College when they were in 9th grade, is something that it shows the foundational skills that then go with the applied learning. And that's what the CLR is really going to show as a visual for that employer when they're even looking at them as a junior in college to come in and do an internship that will hopefully lead to their career pathway.
So I think an interesting piece, and I can't say that with any certainty that it's going to happen. It's just I'm trying to be optimistic here. And that is to say that maybe one minor benefit of the pandemic is that we'll be thinking less about SAT and other kinds of high stakes tests. You know, we're already seeing that more and more places are going SAT optional. We know the challenges of trying to even take this year the SAT or certain things. But at the same time, you know, if you've watched your child go through the college application process of trying to grab letters of recommendation and all these things for stuff that they're doing in K through 12, the thinking about how we could be leveraging the CLR to be brought forward to universities to be evaluating as a digital experience is one of the things that's really intriguing me for the future. I think it's a few years out, but I also think that it would be a way that would really help support this evolution of how students are presenting their materials and how they're able to be showing, you know, more closely the work that they've done and the growth that they've had in areas over time.
For those individuals who are just kind of starting this path and want to, you know, start a conversation with employers, you know, where do you even start that? You know, you might know an employer, you might not, you know, knowing your experience and this great collaboration you have in the area, do you have any recommendations for people who are just starting down this path?
So I can start with that one, just knowing our unique collaboration that we have. You know, getting the employers to all agree on a common set of standards or a common set of anything, especially from different industries, is no small feat. So you can probably see it in the wrinkles in my face. It is the work that we do. I do think that there is power when you bring all of the employers together to have these conversations. So I would say that any type of organization like ours or a chamber of commerce or anything that brings a group of employers together around a common goal is always a really great place to start. I also think piloting something like we are doing with a small cohort is always also a great kind of prototype to go and share successes of how things, you know, how you can impact things before you kind of scale up and make it a broader ecosystem. So I'd say those are probably the two things from the employer side and our perspective, but I'll kick it over to my colleagues for their input as well.
And also too, when we think about workforce development and increasing equity and access for students, we have to think about the social capital component. So if we've identified employers that are willing to come together, work with us, help identify where the future is in 5, 10 years, especially in the IT field, it's so quickly changing and evolving. We have to have structures in place to help all students be successful and help students that don't have the social capital and the resources to navigate this on their own. I feel like we have a responsibility to be able to do that, to create these pathways, to create these opportunities. This is a great way. And when you think about this pandemic, I don't think any of us realized in March of last year we would be in the position that we're currently in. So whatever this new normal is, when we think about work experience, we think about internship. I know that when we started looking at virtual internships as a school system, I wanted to look at it more as a long-term opportunity and not just a short-term, let's get this virtual component introduced so that we can get through COVID. But if you think about whatever this new normal may be, workforce development is going to change, and we have to work together with employers to help build the skill set of our students to be able to adapt to this type of a work environment. And so there are a lot of changes that are happening, and I think they're for the best, because when we think about all students and all students being successful and all students having access to these opportunities, it's so critical that we look at the structures and support systems that we have in place for them.
So one of the things that, while we were talking, Deb and I were chatting, and it was my understanding, and she confirmed that the knowledge, skills, and abilities that had been defined for these various elements are available or will be available on the website to be shared with others. And so, what I would say to many groups is before you start to sit down and do everything from scratch, completely anew, this is a great starting point. Many of these employers have a national footprint. And so depending on where you're located, these may not be a bad starting point to sort of think about how you would begin to look at this. I'd also sort of say that, one of the interesting things, and I'm not trying to push this, but it turns out that like the Bay Area, the Washington, D.C. area is a net importer of talent. The reality is that, many of, there may be schools that aren't part of the Greater Washington Partnership, but you may want to be realizing you're sending a lot of people that are actually coming to the DC area to work, and if that turns out to be the case, there's nothing that stops you from at least sort of showing, you may not be available to issue the final badge, but you could be showing that students are acquiring the lower level learning outcomes if they're going to be working in the region or they want to work in the DC region. And I think, when I made my comment about the Silicon Valley partnership at some point, I was being a little facetious, but not really. I mean, we also send some of our students out to Northern California. And so we expect that if students want that opportunity and they want to be able to be moving to other locations, being able to track what the KSAs are and to be able to show their learning towards those, even if they don't get every one of them, being able to show they've gotten 70 or 80%, maybe the difference between them getting an interview or not getting an interview. And so we see this as opportunistic for the students to be talking about why they think they're a good fit for the organizations that they're applying to.
Other questions that the attendees have? If you want to grab a audio connection, you can do that, or if you just want to enter in chat, you can. I'm going to pause for a second. All right. The other thing I did want to mention for those of you who are interested, IMS Global's Digital Credentials Summit is now live and available. It's fully online this year. So I put a link to that if you're interested. That's the first week of March. Conversations similar to this and other projects will be shared at that Digital Credentials Summit. So it's a great way for you to not only hear what other people are doing, but also get different levels of conversations happening that will support both K-12 higher ed as well as workforce learning. So I see there's some questions maybe that have come in. Just double checking I didn't miss anyone's question. After this, I will be following up with all attendees with a copy of the recording as well as a copy of the slides. If you have further questions you want, my email will be there, so feel free to reach out and I can help connect you or help point you in the direction of resources that would help answer your questions. Any last minute questions? All right. Thank you very much to our panelists and to attendees today for taking the time to talk more about this great partnership program. Have a great day.